business has to be successful. You have to be able to demonstrate that to me. So,
well, thanks for coming. And what are the major challenges you see founders dealing with going from small business to bigger business, maybe
themselves
Okay.
is a very important part of that. Mike was talking about focusing on doing what you do, doing it well, and getting other people to do things, concentrating on the bits that matter to you. When you are trying to take your business further forward, you're going to be very much involved with having other people working for you or working with you. And a lot of founders are very bad at that. They can't get beyond themselves. We have to recognize that if somebody else could do it as well as we could, they would be doing it for themselves already. So we have to learn a lot about ourselves and about how to pick the bits to get other people to do and how to get them to come up and do that well within our little group. I hope that helps a little. Questions? Go for it. Lady there.
How do you decide between actually bringing partners on board or founders on board versus actually hiring people to do the job? How do you decide?
It depends on what's on offer, what you need. When we identify in ourselves that there are things that we are not good at, perhaps one of the things that we can identify in ourselves, and I've certainly identified it in myself, I'm not good at having partners. I went out on my own 35 years ago because I pissed off a couple of different guys who I worked for because I won't keep my mouth shut. I insist on saying things the way I see they are, and some people don't like that. Don't understand why, but some people just don't. So I'm not good at working with a partner for that reason. But other people can be really good. When a partnership is good, it's better than anything you can imagine. But when it's bad, it's a disaster. So whether you're taking on a partner per se, or whether you're taking on an employee, or later you might be looking at minority shareholders, etc., that's a different story.
I give you my experience. I've had a business years ago where I had a co-founder, and we each had our separate businesses when we met. And it was one of those, we always met at these trade shows. So twice a year we would show up and we had stands next to each other. We got talking. It was a bit like, we can't keep meeting like this, kind of do a job, right? So I said to him, look, should we consider joining businesses? We're doing something similar. We're kind of competing. We're kind of the two leading experts in the market we're in. Oh yeah. So we sat down and had a long cup of coffee and a lunch or whatever. And we said, yeah, that should work. We gave it 6 months of a honeymoon period where we actually moved in together, like not in our private life, but in our business life. We shared an office. And in 6 months or 6 months after, we looked at each other going, do you still love me? And do you still love me? And so on and so forth. And we go, yeah, okay. And so we signed up an agreement and we started a company. We owned 50-50 shares, and we did not a traditional shareholders agreement, but we actually did an agreement that says, well, if things don't go quite right, then these are the rules for getting out of it. And thank goodness for that, because we actually needed that a few years later. And seriously, that was the best business partnership I've ever had. It was like everything you'd ever want in a co-founder was what was in this guy. Unfortunately, he got really, really sick, like to like a couple of millimeters of death, and he survived, which is nothing short of a miracle. And he came to me after he's recovered somewhat and says, Mike, I need to quit. He said, just look after this, and I've got small children. And I said, yeah, don't worry, we'll sort it out. Let's sort it out. I went to another business partnership after that, and if the first thing was heaven, this thing was hell. And it was actually good for the first few years, but I ended up being a business partner with someone that turned from being, well, Mr. High to Dr. Jekyll. And it got to a point where I would sit in my car every morning outside the office, often for half an hour, dreading to walk into the business that I was running. That's how toxic it was. That's bad. But that's really bad. But that was how toxic it was. And it was just like, eventually, well, guess what? I left. not very amicable terms, yes, lawyers and all that kind of stuff, but it's what had to happen. And so what I'm running now is I've been a sole founder, but with investors and advisors on the side from day one. So that's a different model again. So I think the answer to your question is, there isn't a straight answer there, what I just showed. There's like a whole palette full of different ways of doing it. Did that help?
Yeah.
Cool. Guys, do you have a question?
Yeah, regarding fundraising, revenue projections in pitch deck. So I read a lot that the revenue projections obviously are seen to less important. It's more the projections of how do you think you're going to run the business, how much it's going to cost you, etc. And I'm a bit struggling with the point of how do you balance between a realistic, if you have, as you said, a bit, founder is a bit around the 40s or more than 40s, has some experience, knows how to run a business or how to build it. So how to balance between realistic projections and then the big blow promise that you want on a pitch deck for a VC, for a high-paced business to say, okay, they dream big, we know they're not going to make it, but if you put the realistic one, they say, well, they're not going to make that either, and just discount it.
Well, if you're saying that the only way that I would invest in your business is if you blow a big bubble, and I then accept the bubble and then you don't deliver it, then we're not going to be good friends, are we? On the other hand, if you're saying that what's realistic is something that I'm not going to be interested in because it's not very good, not very exciting, then maybe what you've got isn't something that somebody's going to invest in. Be realistic. So you've got to look at what your realistic business is and can it be made into something that will be interesting to an investor. Not by telling pork pies, not by pumping it up, but by a real business that's potentially got good potential to make money for yourself and for the investors. That answer your question? I think realism is terribly important. It was something I was thinking about coming down here. I think everybody here is an optimist. Every one of us who runs our own business are optimists. You and I certainly
Either
are.
crazies.
Crazy, yes. But we're all optimistic. And everything that we project and in where we're going to go and what sales we're going to make and all these sorts of things are always tinged with optimism. And that's a good thing because it keeps us going. I think you said earlier, you can get very down when things aren't going well, and it is to some extent the nature of people like us, I think, that we do go up and down.
And it's
The world
generally
around.
other people. It's generally other people who let you down.
Well, yes, or
Like,
people in
don't-
Canberra and people in...
Those
Oh, no,
two.
seriously, people in
Staff
New
don't
York,
do what
people
they
do
say
things
they're
that...
going to do, or subcontractors don't do what they say they're going to do, and then
Sure.
ships don't come on time, and the Mediterranean Sea apparently causes delays in shipping containers and stuff. All of these
all those
things.
things, yes. But when you set out, you assumed that the Mediterranean Sea wasn't going to do that. So then
Yes.
you get down. But we're optimistic because we keep going. We don't actually just throw up our hands and walk away. But at the same time, I think we do have to have that tinge of realism. When we're doing projections, when we're thinking about how it's going to go, we need to do a bit of stress testing. We need to ask ourselves some serious questions like, what would happen if the Mediterranean Sea froze over or whatever it was that happened? Anyway, that was just a thought.
No.
Yes.
Just a question. I mean, they often talk about investors investing in founders or businesses, particularly when you're very early stage like we are now. And naturally, people that have done it before, that have had exits before, look so much better on paper. And in fact, half the time they don't even get to look at the paper because it's just, yeah, I know you've done it before, here you have some money. So for those of us that haven't done it before, but certainly still have a healthy dose of optimism, what is it that you would look for us to exhibit to really sort of get across that line?
Well, I think the things that I've seen pitches that don't have them in, let's start from there. They often have an enormous amount of focus on my clever idea. This is my amazing business idea. I'm very clever, I'm very attached to it, I'm very passionate, Hey, that's good. But really, I don't care. The investor isn't. Sometimes the investor will get fired up like that, but don't count on it. What the investor wants to know is what what you have done with that idea, and what you're going to do with that idea. You know, you invented a new left-handed widget. You know, who's going to buy it? How does it compare to the current widgets in the marketplace? Are you cheaper? Do you get better life out of it? And how are you going to get BHP to buy $20 million a year worth of it? So it's the real hard business age things this is where I'm at. This is what I've done. I now need to do a pilot project. I need money to do it. Real hard stuff like that. And I need to see that you know what you're doing and that you've made those kind of judgments and that you look like you're going to follow them through. Then if I start asking you some hard questions, I need to believe that you're going to do what you say. Is that fair, mate?
I think that's a very fair way of putting it. I think a way you can exemplify your past CV to your future CV, if we can call it that, is you obviously got some knowledge, you obviously got some skills, you've worked for years in these large corporates, blah, blah, blah. I haven't looked at your LinkedIn, but I'll take that as a given. So the interesting thing is to show an investor how that knowledge and how that skill that you gain is transferable into your current business. Hey, I used to run a team of 12 people here, I'm going to run a 12 people. Hey, I used to run a sales budget of $50 million. Guess what? We're doing just, haven't even done the first million, so I'm itching to get to $50 million a year. There's different ways, and again, I don't know your background in that, but it's like any one of those backgrounds can be translated into your current reality. However, you can't assume that investors are going to figure that out on their own. But it's not because they're stupid, just because they're going to not make that connection. They're going to go, no, okay, so what? But if you actually spell it out and say, hey, you know, my specific expertise, like say for argument's sake, you're a change management expert, you know, I build software and change management. Well, guess what? It's not a rocket science. You're going to know everything about change management. It's like, you know, that makes a lot of sense. Oh yes, and I've actually seen on the inside how change management software is procured, and I found a better gizmo. Okay, well, you're a perfect situation for that.
Just on that, from what Gordon said around investors not caring about the product, I've felt that firsthand. So I've been meeting with different investors the last 6 months monthly, and not one of them has asked about what my product is, hasn't asked for a demo, hasn't asked for anything for 6 months. Yet they're willing to become investors now because they ask about what is your traction, how many customers are paying, because they just go, if you've got people that are willing to give you money, your product has to be half decent.
Doesn't matter what you sell, yeah.
None of them have actually wanted to look at it. And I'm like, it's this really cool hip-hop thing. No, don't care.
And then we need to look at the leverage, the scalability. You know, yes, you're actually selling your product to some people. You are making some money. You're probably losing a lot of money as well, but at least you've got some revenues and turnover. Now, how will you scale that? If I give you money to invest, what are you going to do with it? You know, you're going to buy a BMW. Okay, that's scalability. Perhaps.
Well, I was wondering how you get that track record or industry experience if you're still new.
Get a job. Seriously,
I love
it's
it.
the easiest way. And because anyone that we see that come along and says, hey, I'm just getting out of uni, want to start a business, and going, you don't have the experience. And the investors are going to say the same thing. And the reality is that if you're a bit crude about it, and I'm not suggesting you're going to do that, but there's, from your perspective, is the best thing you can do is have 4 jobs in 2 years. 6 months each place, and I was like, oh, I didn't really like this. I'm not talking about 4 jobs in the same career span, but 4 jobs I do 6 months of sales, 6 months of marketing, 6 months of ops, 6 months of whatever. Coming out of that 2 years, as a founder, you know, I want to know a little bit about everything. Not to be dangerous, not to fix all the problems, but at least, you know, say for argument's sake, you're starting a business that needs both sales, marketing, and operations. And let's argue that someone, I don't know what your business is, but it's like, you know, say that if someone gives you $1 million, now you're going to go and hire people in sales, marketing, and ops. You never worked in it, it's freaking impossible to do that. because you don't even know what's required to be skillful in operations if you never worked in it. Now that you have worked in it, the investor will say, oh, so you know how to hire operations people. Well, I haven't hired people before, but I worked in it, so I actually know what's being looked for. I know what good parameters are, I know what good looks like, we would pick up an environment where it was, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's a good argument, right? But it's very, very hard coming out of, I'm not saying it's not doable, because people certainly have done it, but it's really difficult coming out of uni and starting a business, because that means you've got to think about it this way. If you start your own business straight out of uni, you've got to pay for all your mistakes, right? If you go and take a job for the first 2 years, somebody else pays for your mistakes. It's your pig. You're going to make the mistakes anyway, but that's to me that's a big thing. And again, it sounds very crude. I'm not trying to be rude to your future employer, but you got to be realistic about what are you going to get out of it, and they still get a great worker for 6 months. You got to sure you put your heart and soul into it. It's not wrong.
I will throw one slight curveball back at your problem, your challenge. If you've got an idea, a product, a project, a service, whatever it is, that is the next Facebook, the next Amazon, whatever it may be, and you believe that, well, you can try it on your own, but you maybe need to go and get a partner. That's the one situation where maybe you need to go and get a partner who's got some degree of established business. Go and knock on the door of the boys at Atlassian or something like that, because otherwise then you've got to do the track that Mike talked about. Any more?
Next.
Come on, guys. Yes.
I'm always intrigued to wonder, how do you frame past experience which hasn't gone to plan? Like, is it best to bring it up before you find it out, or is it best to, do you need to store it? I hear different pieces of advice as to, I did this business, it was going to make me $1 million and did the opposite, or something like that. Like, how do you, as an investor, how do you like founders to actually bridge it all?
Well, I guess first question is, can it be hidden?
Okay.
But assuming not, because very few things can be these days. Yeah, okay. You need to focus on what went wrong, why it went wrong, what did you learn, and why are you not making the same mistakes or facing the same problems this time? Is it something totally different? Is it something similar? And it's, you probably need to get it out there and say, I have learned from this.
Yeah.
Because we all learn as we go through life.
Yeah.
Some of us hopefully learn a little. Some people seem not to.
It enables you to have
Talking
risk
about Canberra
mitigation.
again. Sorry?
From your experience, it allows you to have knowledge around risk mitigation, so you shouldn't make the same mistake again. So it should actually, if you frame it in the right way, it should make them happier to invest in you because their risk's reduced because you're not going to be doing that thing again.
I'm just wondering whether you would actually, as an investor, whether you actually share that perspective.
Yes. Oh, yes. I mean, we're trying to find out about your ability to run a business. And you're coming to me and saying, I'm running this business.
And the lights went off.
The lights off.
You did that just for a peg. Oh my God.